Some faces scream, some faces beg, some faces contort in terror, and then there are the faces that do nothing at all. Tonight, we return to a woman who did not cry, did not plead, did not react, even as her body was opened, examined, and finally uncovered. Hello, witches and wanderers, and welcome back to the Morbid Witch Podcast. Tonight, we're revisiting a shadow from a very early episode in the show's history. Back in episode 4, the Expressionless appeared briefly, one unsettling fragment among many. But some stories don't fade, they wait. Tonight, we're giving the Expressionless the full autopsy, its origins in early creepypasta culture, the complete narrative, the inspirations behind it, and the way it quietly embedded itself into modern horror without ever screaming for attention. The Expressionless first appeared in the early 2010s, during the formative years of Creepypasta, a time when horror on the internet was still raw, experimental, and deeply personal. Unlike later viral horror stories designed for shock or spectacle, early creepypastas often mimicked found documents, clinical notes, or eyewitness testimony. The Expressionless follows this tradition exactly, presenting itself as a medical account rather than a supernatural legend. Its power lies in restraint. There is no gore for gore's sake, no dramatic reveal, just an escalating sense that something is wrong and that the narrator knows it. This approach places the Expressionless closer to analog horror and medical horror than traditional ghost stories, which is why it lingers so effectively. The story centers on a woman admitted to a hospital after a violent accident. Her face is unnervingly neutral, not calm, not numb, but vacant. Doctors, nurses, and police officers attempt to communicate with her, but she does not respond emotionally to pain, fear, or threat. As examinations continue, her injuries worsen. Bones are broken, flesh is damaged. Still, no reaction, no flinch, no scream. Medical professionals grow increasingly disturbed, not because of her condition, but because of her compliance. She allows procedures without resistance, without acknowledgement. Eventually, something inside her is revealed, something that should not be there. The implication is not that she is possessed, but that she is inhabited, hollowed out, and repurposed. What makes the Expressionless so effective isn't what happens, it's what doesn't. Human beings expect fear, pain, or at least confusion. Emotion is how we confirm someone's humanity. When it's absent, the mind fills the gaps with dread. The woman's blank face denies the audience emotional cues. We don't know how to feel because she doesn't tell us how to feel. This taps into a primal fear, not of violence, but of emptiness. The idea that something wearing a human body may not be human at all. The Expressionless draws heavily from real-world medical horror and psychiatric case studies, particularly conditions involving dissociation, catatonia, and extreme trauma responses. There are echoes of historical asylum narratives where patients were described as vacant, unresponsive, or hollow-eyed. These accounts often dehumanize the patient, making them objects of study rather than people. The story also reflects fear surrounding modern medicine itself, sterile rooms, clinical language, and the idea that the body can be opened without understanding the soul inside. In this way, The Expressionless becomes a horror story about observation without empathy. Unlike Slender Man or Jeff the Killer, The Expressionless has no iconic design, no catchphrase, no mythos expansion. And that's deliberate. She doesn't chase, she doesn't threaten, she doesn't perform. She exists, and that's enough. This refusal to entertain the audience makes her unsettling in a way that feels almost invasive, as if the story wasn't meant to be shared at all. Though never adapted into a major film or game, The Expressionless quietly influenced a generation of horror creators. You can see her DNA in analog horror series, liminal hospital imagery, and modern depictions of emotionally vacant figures in internet horror. She is frequently referenced in horror forums, creepypasta retrospectives, and minimalist horror collections, often cited as the story that made me uncomfortable, without knowing why. Her legacy isn't popularity, it's unease. In an era of increasingly loud horror, jump scares, extreme gore, viral spectacle, The Expressionless remains effective because it refuses escalation. It trusts silence. It trusts discomfort. It trusts the reader to sit with the idea that not all horror wants to be understood or even acknowledged. Some horror just exists. When The Expressionless appeared in episode 4, she was one story among many, a flicker. Returning to her now, with the space to breathe, reveals how much depth was always there. Some stories don't need reinvention. They need time. What is more frightening? A monster that screams? Or one that never reacts at all? A face twisted in terror? Or a face that remains still no matter what is done to it? The Expressionless reminds us that horror doesn't always come with warnings. Sometimes it lies quietly on a hospital bed, staring through you, not asking for help, not resisting, not reacting, just waiting. Thank you for listening to the Morbid Witch Podcast and for walking back into one of our earliest shadows with me. If this episode unsettled you, good. Some stories are meant to. Until next time, stay strange, stay spooky, and remember, the shadows are always watching.